Hello and welcome to the Dan Beasley Show. Today we will be discussing things such as the Syrian situation, the Russians in the Mediterranean, the tropical storm Andrea, FBI flap, governmental snooping, Rand Paul chiming in with is this the death of America? The FBI lied to national security about the Saudi hijackers for 9/11, and also other things such as radioactive leaks at the Fukushima plant in Japan, and also will electronic tattoos replace internet passwords and other forms of identification. Today we is 6/6/2013. It's 6:42 p.m. and we're coming to you from Hartsville, South Carolina. Welcome you to the Dan Beasley Show. And we will be going to our first news item today. And it's the Syrian rebel offensive in the Golan Heights jolts Israel. This is coming to you from yahoonews.com. And it says Quneitra, Golan Heights, Syrian rebels briefly seized control of a border crossing along the Israeli-controlled Golan Heights on Thursday, prompting the withdrawal of a major Austrian peacekeeping contingent and heightening fears in Israel that it could soon be dragged into the neighboring country's civil war. On the Israeli side of the Golan Heights, Syrian tanks and armored vehicles could be seen across the border. Large explosions could be heard throughout the day. Thick smoke and flames rose from the area. Israeli TV stations showed images of Israeli tourists flocking to the Golan to look across the frontier and gawk at the fighting. All the Israeli troops along the border were on high alert, although the military said no special actions had been taken in response to the escalation. Moving along to our next news item, Russia has announced that they have a permanent Mediterranean naval presence, which is more than flexing their muscles, so to speak. This is coming from Moscow, and again, this is news source yahoo.com. Moscow, from Reuters, Russia has deployed a naval unit in the Mediterranean Sea. It said on Thursday a move that Vladimir Putin said was to defend Russian security, but which comes as a Moscow face-off with the West over Syria. And what Russia's permanent is Russia's permanent naval deployment in the Mediterranean since Soviet times. It stationed 16 warships and 3 ship-based helicopters in the region, the chief of staff said. Putin said the deployment was not saber-rattling, was not meant to threaten as a threat to any nation. Russia cooperates with NATO navies against piracy, and its ships call at Western ports. But its support for President Bashar al-Assad as he fights rebels have put Moscow at odds with the West. This is a strategically important region, and we have tasks to carry out there to provide for the national security of the Russian Federation, Putin said. Large-scale naval exercises Russia held in March and ship movements near Syria have been seen in the West as muscle flexing by Moscow, which has sold weapons to the Assad government and shielded it from any action by the UN Security Council. That is an escalation of a global rival or former global rival. It's a nuclear power, and also it is showing outward support for Syria, and Syria is trying to quell the civil war, trying to depose the President Assad. So moving along, we have in the news a tropical storm, first one of the year for continental U.S. Tropical storm Andrea drenches Florida and is bound for the East Coast. We're already feeling its effects as far north as South Carolina. We're in the northeast quadrant of the state, and we're getting wind and rain sporadically, and some flooding. So as time goes on, we'll see exactly just what transpires and how things work out. According to this news article from NBC News, Tropical Storm Andrea, the first storm of the Atlantic hurricane season, drenched Florida on Thursday as it made landfall and was expected to bring high winds, heavy rain, and rough seas to much of the U.S. coast in the coming days. Tropical storm warnings were in effect for a large section of Florida's west coast all the way up to Cape Charles Light in Virginia. According to the Weather Channel, Andrea's maximum sustained winds increased to near 65 miles per hour at landfall near Big Bend area, about 35 miles northwest of Cedar Key, Florida, on Thursday evening. The storm was expected to move across southeastern Georgia and the Carolinas and then head north. It was not expected to strengthen into a hurricane. Although 65 miles per hour is a Category 1 hurricane, if they have sustained winds of 65 miles per hour, it becomes a hurricane. However, right now, I guess it's having sporadic wind gusts of 65 miles per hour, not sustained winds. It's moving at a speed of 17 miles per hour across Florida, and it's expected to gain speed as it moved inland and was already creating some flooding in South Florida. It says this one, fortunately, is a fast-moving storm, said the governor, Rick Scott. And slower moving storms have caused more flooding because they had more time to linger and dump rain, according to the Weather Channel. It could cause some minor flooding in low-lying areas, particularly some areas that saw flooding from Tropical Storm Alberto in 2006, said Michael Lowry, hurricane specialist for the Weather Channel. Forecasters see a 2 to 5 foot increase of storm surge could be seen along the coastline line at Big Bend in Florida. Okay, moving along, we have the FBI back in the news again, and the FBI is looking for a backdoor to all software. In other words, they're not looking just for Windows and just for major browser software. They're looking for any type of software. And they're saying that backdoor experts say the strategy would help our enemies, but the FBI is put in. They're unhappy that there are communication technologies that it cannot intercept, and it wants to require that software makers and communication companies create a backdoor so that they can listen in when they desire. But a team of technology experts warned that would hand over the nation's enemy to the nation's enemies' abilities that they are capable of developing technologies from our technologies for themselves. And this issue has been raised by the FBI because there's currently no way to wiretap some of these communication methods easily and companies effectively. So it's pretty clear about the government's need to know. It's almost becoming what is commonly known as classically the totalitarian type of government. Moving along, the government, when we had the Boston bombing at the Boston Marathon, the governor of Massachusetts got drunk afterwards, and after the manhunt, and he was moaning and complaining about shelter-in-place order. Governor Deval Patrick gave a candid behind-the-scenes look at the horrific days after the Boston Marathon bombings. He was telling employees at the Cambridge marketing firm yesterday that he got quite drunk the day after the intense manhunt finally ended. That's not really fitting of a governor. Especially our leaders are supposed to be in charge and supposed to be looking after the public interest and not trying to nurse personal wounds. So we had that story in the news. leadership is found to be very wanting in this country. Where are the leaders? I don't know. It seems like we have lost them, and we are losing our way and losing our country. Rand Paul is in the news, and he is saying that Orwell, that's George Orwell, who was an author that wrote a book, novel called 1984, and he says that Orwell's 1984 has arrived. And the senator warns of an astounding assault on the Constitution by the National Security Agency, the NSA. This story is saying that the FBI is backing up, wants backdoors to all communications equipment software. NSA is grabbing trillions of phone records of American citizens, and reporters' research apparently is a subject of interest at the Department of Justice. So we have a major thrust here of the government seeking information on Americans, and it's seeking to try to find out as much as it can in as short a period as it can, for reasons that probably have become apparent to a lot of people. Once you put a government on display and you show that it's been compromised, they retaliate, and this is a retaliation apparently against the press. The press was silent for a good while, during the course of some of these things happening, but now they have finally awakened, and now it may be too little too late. I don't know. That's just commentary, and that's an opinion not to be taken as fact, but you make your own decisions. I just read the news, and you can interpret it and make your own decisions. However, I do share my opinions from time to time, and this is one time. So I look at it as a power grab. It's a power grab, and it's an assault on privacy in the United States. For those of you that have a long-term memory out there, you will probably note that in the late 70s, prior to Richard Nixon's Watergate fiasco, personal privacy was one of the big items that was being discussed at that time, and there were laws being passed to protect citizens against invasion of privacy by the government. However, this is a new day and a new century under a new administration, and we are now, seems like we're backpedaling on that issue, and it's almost like it's an assumption that you have no right to assume that you have any privacy anymore if you use an electronic device for your communication with others. It is going to be subjected to scrutiny if the government deems it to be necessary. Right now, they said dystopian novels were just that, talking about George Orwell's novel on the ultimate government control. And he's saying it is here. He says dystopian novels were just that, bad utopias, but not practically possible. One could always sigh in relief that such surveillance and invasion of privacy was not technologically possible until now. Now we have the technology, drones that measure less than an inch, weigh less than an ounce, and hover noiselessly outside your bedroom window are not a dystopian future, but today's reality, he said. The individual who feared 1984 when it was written in 1949 need now shout from the top of his or her lungs, for technology had made the unthinkable thinkable, said Paul. What are the recent developments that prompted the interest? The National Journal raised questions over confirmation that Verizon, of which I happen to be a subscriber of, the National Journal raised questions over the confirmation that Verizon